Hello, my name is Joe Brumfield, Senior Director with ASCD. Our team is dedicated to partnering with you to create custom solutions for all of your professional learning needs. On behalf of your friends here at ASCD, I'd like to welcome you to ASCD Webbies. Our Webbies are short clips created by our faculty members to highlight strategies to help educators deliver virtual instruction. Join us every Friday to learn and share some creative ways to deliver instruction with engaging online tools. Our Webbies will be released every Friday on social media accounts as well as ASCD streaming. Follow the hashtag ASCD Faculty Friday to view our latest releases. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Carbaugh. I teach in the Department of Middle, Secondary, and Math Education at James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia. My Twitter handle is @EMC7X. Please feel free to reach out. I love interacting and networking with folks. If you have great ideas, I'd love to hear those as well. Today's topic is going to be using digital badging to promote personalized pathways to success. And the learning objectives that we're going to address over the course of the next 10 minutes or so is to explore how digital badges can be used to gauge student progress relative to specific learning goals and assignments, and then provide opportunities for personalized feedback and growth. And so we're looking at making sure we're very clear with our objectives and where we want students to end up, and then using these badges and these assignments as tools to provide feedback in that sort of personalized path to student success and student competency. There's two tools that we'll be looking at today. The first one is badgelist.com. That tends to be the most user-friendly of the badging sites that I've used, and it's also free, which is great. And then any learning management system, so like Google Classroom, Blackboard, or Canva, those are the tools that you can use to post assignments, but for students also to submit the work that they've completed. And so they'll submit the work, you provide feedback maybe through that system, and then once they're complete and they've met competency, they get awarded the badge, which is created on badgelist.com. And digital badges, if you've never heard of these before, you're new to them, is a visual way of representing student mastery of various content or assignments. And so essentially, when students, again, complete an assignment and show mastery or competency, they're awarded a badge for that work. And so through the website, badgelist.com, the one we're going to use, you can enter in student information, and then they can be emailed a badge once they've achieved the level of mastery. The benefits of digital badges is students can sort of help see learning on a continuum towards mastery. And so we've identified what mastery looks like. We have rubrics, we have clear criteria. And so they can sort of see where they are in relationship to being successful with that. And then the feedback we provide as educators helps get them to that point. Particularly during remote learning, we're not relying on seat time. And so we're not saying that students have to sit in front of X or Y for an hour at a time, but rather, here's the expectation, here's the assignment, here's examples of the assignment, here's a rubric. It's competency-based. Once you reach the level of competency, you're good to go, you can move on. And so it's not really forcing students to join us for these Zoom sessions like every single week, but rather we can check in when we need to, we can record tutorials, but it's a competency-based approach that doesn't rely on seat time. To help to focus student-teacher interactions and feedback. And so as a teacher, the feedback that we provide is very targeted because we've identified clear learning outcomes and we've identified what mastery is of that. And so it helps really focus those interactions. And so we know exactly what we're giving feedback on, and students know exactly what's expected of them. So it targets those interactions. It promotes a more personal learning path for each student. And what we mean by that is that, again, it's competency-based. And so students can sort of work on a pace that's appropriate for them and then receive feedback and revise certain portions if they need to achieve mastery or competency. And in some instances, the badges can even gamify the learning experience. And so the reason games are so addictive, video games, is that there's an immediate reward. And so we get a little bit further than we did last time. And so our brains get hit with that reward. And then we view that as something we want to come back to. And so with digital badges, we're gamifying that experience because students are given that visual reward, that visual representation, and that can encourage them to keep working on the next badge. And so it's this sort of more success breeds more success model that we're looking at there. The structure of digital badging sort of looks like this. First and foremost, it's really important to work backward from key learning objectives. So that's what we do first. We identify the key learning objectives for a particular task or project or portfolio. The second piece is actually designing that. What does that look like? What does student work look like? What am I collecting from students so that I can see that they've met these learning goals? And then we have to think about what levels of mastery look like. And so what's the success criteria I'm looking for? What are the levels of mastery that I deem as acceptable for students who have met this competency? If students are not there, then we can provide feedback, right? and then they can revise and then be rewarded the badge. And so we get to that point where we've identified criteria, they submit an assignment. We're almost there, but you need to maybe revise this portion of that portion of the portfolio or of the task. They can do that and resubmit and then be awarded a badge based on mastery. A few design tips for this as you're thinking about checking out this process and trying it. Determine a scope of the badge. Grain size is really important. We don't want a badge that's so long and unwieldy that students might find trouble keeping up with it, right? But we don't want it so small and tiny that they could maybe just read a brief article and then submit a paragraph response and that's it. What we want to do is make sure that our badges are of an appropriate grain size where there's a certain amount of work invested to meet a competency before we can move on. We also want to make sure that the assessment and the tasks we use have very clear language. We call it student-friendly language. We really want to make sure that the expectations we have for students are very clearly communicated to them. And so without that process, and students might be left sort of unsure about what the expectations are. And so the clearer we are with our directions, the more successful we'll be. Evaluative criteria in the form of checklists or rubrics can be created as well and should be created. And those should be aligned with key learning goals. And so what we're evaluating is student success and mastery of these learning goals. And so that success criteria in terms of checklists and rubrics should very much align with those learning outcomes. We can use models or exemplars as well. This gives students clearer expectations. If we have a product at the end that we can show them this is what success looks like, then they can take steps to get in the right direction towards that level of success. And then some students might require some potential scaffolds or supports. We want to make sure we have those in place as well for certain students and staying in a feedback loop with them, knowing kind of what those supports might be and how we can provide those to students. So this is a Canvas module for a course I'm teaching this summer. I'm currently in the process of building it. And so this is a course on assessment. The very first badge that my students earn in this course is through a formative assessment analysis where they have to gather formative assessment data, analyze it, and make instructional decisions. And so you can see here, I've got an overview of the assignment, including the learning goals with which it's aligned. There's a rubric that goes with that. That's the second document there. Then there's a reading and a video that lay out the process and kind of what they're going to be going through. The last three documents that are on here are all models. They're examples for students to look at so they can see what success criteria entails. I will also consider as we get closer to this course launching in a few weeks, tutorials or asynchronous work that I might post for students to be successful on this. And then also maybe holding mini workshops with students as well if they might need some help. This will all be done remotely. And so I'll have students sign up for mini workshops on particular topics related to this particular badge. And so if we pull this down for a second, I can show you what badge list looks like. It's associated with this particular first module, first badge. And so here's the badge for it, formative assessment analysis. And so if you click on this again, it's got the overview. For me, mastery is 90%. I feel comfortable with my students knowing that they can go out in the field and be a teacher if they've met 90% of mastery of this. And so for me, that's 54 out of 60 points. My classes and courses are usually based on a point system. There's the assignment overview that kind of lays out some details about what they'll be doing. Then there's the learning goals that are listed here as well. And then last, and this hasn't been done yet because I haven't imported the class, but eventually I can award this badge to students using this system as well. And so once the students have been imported into this tool, then I can award the badges to students through this process. And so the module and badge lists work together. There's a module that's got the information. That's where they submit their assignments. That's where feedback is given. And then that information has kind of been imported in here, and students are assigned and awarded the badge through badge list. A couple other quick things before we get out of here today. Some opportunities for revision is really important with this process. I mentioned that it's a personalized pathway, right? And that feedback is a big part of this personalized pathway. We can't expect students to do an open-ended performance-based assessment without some guidance or feedback or chances for revision. And so when students can analyze their mistakes, this can lead to improved student performance, but also increased persistence because the students are starting to stick with topics that they find difficult that they might have abandoned before. And so it teaches them how to learn because they see that process of feedback and revision. They realize that this leads to growth. And so that can promote more persistence in the future with students as well. And it also honors the reality that our best ideas sometimes aren't our first ones. And so those second, third wave ideas might come after we provided feedback and students have chances at revision. And so again, we're looking at learning on a continuum. It doesn't just happen from A to B. There's a lot of points in between where students might go back and think differently about the work that they've been doing. This is my policy for badging and revision. Setting a mastery level for all students. Again, that 90% is what I use for all the assignments in this particular course that I've built out or am building out. This can be a grade or percentage depending on how you use your grades in your classroom. And all students are expected to reach this. So if it's 80%, if it's 90%, if it's a C, if it's a B, whatever it might be, students are all expected to meet that before they move on. But after mastery is reached, students have one more opportunity to resubmit for a higher grade. And that's something I built into my course, is that they've got mastery, you're at 90%, but hey, if a student says, I would like to improve it just one more time, do you mind if I just submit another draft? I can't really say no to that. So they get one more chance to improve their grade before they move on to the next batch. And so this is a 6-week course that I'm building out, and students will progress through it for the most part at a very personalized pace, with due dates that are going to be suggested for each of the badges, recognizing that students might need a little more time, or for some of them a little less time to complete this course. So I thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you learned just a couple of tips about using digital badges. I'm going to upload these handouts, these slides to tinyurl.com/Webbies ASCD. And again, if you have any questions or would like to connect, please feel to reach out on Twitter at EMC7X. So I hope you all stay safe. Have a great summer. I look to catching up soon.